Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the Kids4Kids Youth Connections Forum. I'm ABC from Kids4Kids. It's really nice to see all of you here. And we're going to talk about a very exciting topic today, entrepreneurship. And this is a topic that's actually selected by you who attended our last Youth Connections Forum. So thank you very much for your feedback. And before we dive in and introduce our speakers, I'd like to ask you to log on slido.com if you haven't yet. And we're going to ask you to log on to it with our password as hashtag K4K. And this is where you're going to send in your questions to our speakers. And don't wait until the last minute. We're going to ask you to send it in as you are listening to them so that we can save more time for Q&A later. Okay, the password is hashtag K4K. Please log on now. We're going to give you a few seconds to do that. Okay, we're very excited that we have 3 speakers today. Gary Stokes, Sakshi Vasudev, and also Baby Cherry, who are all here already. So without further ado, I'm going to start with the first speaker. Gary.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, Gary. Gary is a very experienced entrepreneur, eco-activist, and also the owner of a vegan restaurant in Hong Kong. Welcome to the forum. And we spoke yesterday, and you had a fascinating story. And I want to start with asking you the question about the beginning. Every story has a beginning. So how did your journey start? I know that you care deeply about the environment and also marine life. So tell us all about it. Like, when did you start to care about it? What triggered you?
Okay, yeah. Well, there was a couple of real trigger moments. Firstly, I grew up in the Mediterranean on the islands of Malta and Cyprus. So, obviously being surrounded by the ocean and by the water, it was inevitable I was going to get wet. And in doing so, obviously fell in love with the ocean itself. And I returned to Malta after about 25 years of being away. I've been living in Hong Kong. And I went back to my little old haunts where I was, used to go as a kid and go snorkeling. And when I went back, it was very sad to see that pretty much everything was dead. Everything was gone. There was basically just seagrass left. There was no fish. There were no morays or crabs and all these things I remember as a kid growing up. So that was one of the real trigger moments. And at that point in time, I was doing a lot of underwater photography and filmmaking and scuba diving, teaching scuba diving. So on top of that, I found myself in Tonga in the South Pacific, and I was there to film humpback whales. And we had a moment. Anybody who ever gets the chance to swim with a whale, I guarantee, go and do it. It will blow your mind. But on this particular day, what happens in Tonga is the whales migrate up to the warmer climates where they give birth, and they nurse their young and feed them milk and fatten them up, ready for their journey south to Antarctica, where they go to feed on all the krill. So we were there filming this mother with her newborn baby. She was probably about 3 weeks old. Weighed about probably about half a ton already by that time. I mean, we're not talking small fry. And normally the mothers have a male that swims along with them. It's not necessarily the father. It's quite often just a large male as an escort to protect the mum or the calf from any predators. And on this occasion, the mother was alone and obviously exhausted. And after about 15 minutes of us being in the water, me and 3 other friends, the mother obviously saw that we weren't a threat and decided to go down to about 15 meters and have a sleep while leaving us to babysit a baby humpback. So this humpback was frolicking and playing around on the surface, and we're just trying to keep out of its way. And then eventually the mother came back up to surface. The baby went and sat underneath and sort of nestled underneath the chin. And we had a moment with the mother where I looked into her eye, and the eye was about this sort of big, and it's very much like a human eye. It's got the white and the color of the cornea and then the pupil, and it's moving backwards and forwards between me and my friends. And it was at that point that I realized that there was this connection between two species, where one species had actually trusted another species to look after her young. And that was pretty emotional. I mean, we got out of the water there and it was just, wow, that was powerful. And then it was only a few weeks later that the Japanese whaling fleet announced that they were going to add humpback whales to their kill quota. They were going to be killing 50 humpback whales. And the target, or sampling area as they call it, was due south of Tonga. And that was when I realized that there was a high possibility that this mum and the calf were going to get a harpoon in them in the coming season. And that ignited something inside me. It was kind of an anger. It was kind of a betrayal of our species sort of thing. And I decided that I had to do something about it. I went on Google. I had a look around to see what there was and came across an organization called Sea Shepherd. And they sort of ticked every box that I had on my agenda, which was direct action, getting down there, getting in the way and stopping these harpoons by any means necessary, so long as it was legal and nobody was hurt. So that was kind of what threw me and propelled me into the conservation movement. And that year we went to Antarctica for 4 months at sea on the Bob Barker. We chased the Japanese whaling fleet all the way around Antarctica, and they ended up quitting and going home 6 weeks early because of our actions. And that saved, of the 1,050 whales that was on their kill quota, we saved 863. So with that sort of a victory behind you and the feeling of jubilation that just the few people on board our ship in the whole of the human race, we had actually gone out there and actually achieved something that nobody else had actually even tried. And that feeling, it was overwhelming, and that was what really catapulted me. When I got back, I just wanted to do more. So that was kind of what started it all, and it sort of snowballed from there on.
Well, that's a wonderful story, and I like the way that you ended that story with the phrase, "I wanted to do more." So tell us, what more did you do after that?
Well, I came back, and being in Hong Kong, I had already been working a lot on the shark fin industry and exposing the shark fin industry. So I came back sort of really on supercharge mode and started taking on, one battle after another, and every single victory, even small victories, propelled us even more and just made me want to do more. And it became to the point where there wasn't anyone that I wasn't afraid to try and challenge and take on. At one point, we were sitting outside Uncle Russ here in Discovery Bay, and I was taking on the United Nations CITES and the Singapore government all over a coffee. And that I never would have deemed possible before. I've taken on Maersk, the world's biggest shipping line. And basically by sticking to fact, and highlighting the truth, we've ended up getting some amazing victories, and it's just kept growing and growing, and it gets addictive.
I guess so. And I know you also have a restaurant business, and you actually were able to turn it around really drastically. Tell us your experience about that, and also how do you marry your passion in protecting the environment into a business environment?
Yeah, so my background was actually food and beverage, and I had shares in a bar in Discovery Bay called Hemingway's, and we served meat and fish and everything else, and that kind of went against my grain as I grew into this new role within the conservation movement. It was hypocritical of me to be going out to save the world and yet be profiting from selling meat and fish and dairy. So as a vegan myself, I decided that enough was enough. I needed to get out of the restaurant, and I planned to sell it, my small shares. When I went to the main shareholder, he actually said, well, actually, I'm thinking of selling it to the neighbors. And at that point, that was when I was like, no, I can't have that. We've got too many years invested in this place. The staff that are working here, I treat as family. And the thought of us losing all of that. So I ended up buying the restaurant, or buying out the shareholders, and going home, and my wife sort of saying, so did you sell? And I said, not exactly. We now have 90% of the restaurant. And she said, well, that's 90% of the problem then. And I said, well, no, I'm going to turn the restaurant vegan or plant-based. And she just looked at me and said, we're going to lose all of our money. And we continued, and we went ahead. The management team here got fully on board with me. They've seen some of my crazy ideas before, and we, jumped into it feet first. It was a big learning experience for some. And everybody thought we were committing financial suicide, but our sales started going up. People were more interested. The vegan movement is definitely a growing movement. It's no longer a thing on the outskirts. It's now mainstream. We got more and more celebrities coming out, and we did all this before the big wave hit of veganism that's been going around the world. And our sales are up, and the best thing is I do get to merge my two passions, and it's sort of reignited my love of the food and beverage industry, because this is just another tool that I can use to try to change things for the better in the world by doing a plant-based diet.
Right. Along the process, I'm sure you actually faced a lot of difficulties, although you sort of like given us the very positive side of it. But when we talked yesterday, like you also encounter a lot of comments, So I was wondering if you could share about, like when you present this opportunity, which you think is is like the thing that you should do, to especially the people that you care about, your family, and also your friends, and also your staff that you treat as family, and they come back with skeptical comments or questions, or even thinking that you're out of your mind. What do you say to them to convince them that you're actually heading the right direction?
Yeah. Well, it's very, very key. I think a lot of people do think I'm out of my mind half the time, even myself. But it was more a question of, I think, the passion that you have and your determination. I think, even my wife, she's now got used to the fact that when she sees me come in, I say, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. On some of the times she'll look and just go, no, really, seriously, just stop and think about it. Other times she'll just look at me and just go, oh God, here we go, we're off. But yeah, I mean, there was negativity. And of course that then puts more weight on your shoulders and makes you more determined to prove these people wrong. And of course, if we had completely failed and shut down and gone out of business, I had a lot riding on this, not only just financial, but also, the livelihoods of staff and family that all rely on this business. So yeah, I have to be careful, but then I also weigh that up with what I believe in. And I think if you do make decisions with your heart and do the right thing, hopefully there's this thing called karma that does come around and help, and comes back on you. And so far it's been pretty good to me. So
what about yourself? Like when you have doubts, when you are actually thinking that, oh, these are not going well, what do you say to yourself to encourage yourself to move on?
Yeah, I mean, we all have dark days and down days, and especially when you start reading negative feedback on social media, for example. I mean, the amount of trolling and things that go on social media, I think, is one of the negative things, obviously, of a powerful, weapon which social media can be. I mean, it can be used. I use it a lot for the good, but when it comes to things like negativity and trolling and things like that, I tend to put them in a little box. I don't check it. I don't keep going back and reading it, because then it starts eating up at me inside. And I know then if I start going down and getting more and more depressed, then I know I'm going to make erratic, crazy decisions. So I tend to take criticism, obviously, take it all on board, but I try not to let it eat away too much.
So, well, now we're all facing this uncertainty, under COVID-19. How's your restaurant doing?
Well, we made a decision on the 24th of March, so before the government restrictions, and basically we decided to close, purely really on a safe health issue. I just wanted to keep everybody safe and do what I feel is the right thing and be responsible, not just for the staff, but also for the patrons, and also to send a message to the community that we need to stay at home. Things are not normal right now. We need to really stay at home. And of course, financially, that's been devastating for us. We have then, looked at it. We had about 4 days of being completely closed. And in those days, I was spending my time developing an entire new online delivery program so we could do home deliveries. We did them very scarcely before, and it wasn't very, organized, but I spent 4 days then setting up a platform so we could then do home deliveries, with also the option of no contact deliveries. So we could, drop off to people who were in quarantine, and they could pay online in advance. We put it outside their door and ring the doorbell and run like hell, So we spent 4 days modifying and getting that up and running, and now we launched that. And we're slowly building up business, but I mean, obviously it's nowhere near what we would have been doing. But like last weekend, we did probably about 20% of what we would normally do on a regular Saturday night. So, it is a question of adapting and evolving, and not just sitting there and just going, oh my God, we're screwed. We have to keep fighting somehow. But obviously it won't be sustainable. If it's for the short term, we should be okay. Long term, could get very scary.
Well, but you've made a very brave decision, and also it actually is what you believe in, which is something that I think resonates with a lot of us a lot. It's not just doing the business, but doing what is actually right. And you've actually told us, shared about that great quality, of being an entrepreneur. Before we move into the other session, I want to remind everyone that, you have to log on Slido, and then please key your questions in Slido, and then we're going to come back together with all the questions. And I think I'm going to skip the Q&A now for Gary, because time is running out. I'm going to just move straight to our 2 young entrepreneurs. And then after they share their stories, we could come back to the questions. So we are very, very happy, very excited that 2 of our Action for a Cause team project leaders, Sakshi and Betty, are here to share with us their very exciting project. So let's start with Sakshi. Hi. Hi, Sakshi.
Hi, can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, I think everybody has to look at your face now, Tell us about yourself. How old are you and where do you study?
I'm currently 18 years old and I study in City University of Hong Kong.
Okay, so you have this project called BamPads. Tell us about it. What is BamPads?
BamPads is actually a social enterprise designed to market reusable cloth pads in Hong Kong, hold workshops in Hong Kong to tell the public more about sustainable period poverty, and also to empower marginalized women who are affected by period poverty by providing them sets of reusable pads that they can use for 3 to 5 years.
So how did you start the project? What actually triggered you to start this project?
So I was actually doing my DSE, sort of like public examinations, where, mind would wander off because you're busy, you're tired of studying. And suddenly the idea of reusable pads came into my mind. And I did some research online, but I couldn't find any, like, you know, based in Hong Kong that I could purchase. There was one, but it was like crazy expensive, $500, $600 for just one set. And then I forgot about it, and only then my father gave me my first set of reusable pads of different fabric. And I started posting online. People had questions. They were like, where can I buy this? Like, how do I use it and all that? And I hadn't used it then. But then after I used it, I realized that this is such a life-changing product for every girl and woman who would need this product. Because in a way, like wearing reusable pads, you're accepting your periods, you're accepting your body as it is, instead of using the disposable ones, which is very common nowadays. So after my dad gave me my first set of reusable pads, I realized that this is a product that Hong Kong women and girls need a lot. So I decided to get in touch with the manufacturer, and hence the name comes BamPads, Bam as in bamboo, because one of the products that I sell is made out of bamboo charcoal, and the other one is microfleece, and you can use the pads for 3 to 5 years, depending on how well you care for them. Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. You know, like, but so who did you actually first sell these products to, and what did they say to you?
So my first customers were actually my friends who tried out these products, and then the reviews I got were amazing. They said, "Oh, this is such a nice product. It's so comfortable compared to what, like, you know, we were using." And as many, like, you know, as women know that if you use disposable pads, there's a stinky smell. And with those reusable pads, there's actually no smell, no anything. And the absorbency level is so much greater than what the market is selling, as well as the economic benefit that you have. Because one set, if you buy from BamPads, is 250 Hong Kong dollars. And if you divide that by 5 years, that's, like, you know, that's going to be really cheap for you, 50 Hong Kong dollars per year. Now imagine one set of disposable pads that you get per month is 50 Hong Kong dollars. How much money are you actually saving? And one disposable pad, for the environmental benefit, takes about 500 to 800 years to decompose, just one. So you can imagine the, like, you know, the environmental harm that disposable pads are causing, the like, you know, such high costs that some women have to resort to using like, you know, unhygienic cloth, cow dung, so basically cow poop, dry it out, wrap it in cloth, and they have to wear them. And there's like so many other cases, and this is what I usually talk about in our workshop, as well as like a touch and feel session where you get to feel the pads before buying it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so what about difficulties? You know, I'm sure a lot of people will also say to you that I'm not going to use it, you know, because, or, you know, I'm not going to listen to you because, you know. So what are the problems that you have faced, and how do you actually solve them?
I would say that Hong Kong society, in terms of talking about periods, they're very conservative. So if you were to say out loud, like, oh no, my periods are coming, does anyone have a pad in a classroom? They're gonna stare at you like you committed some sort of crime. So I would say that the society around the world regarding periods is quite conservative, that they're not accepting periods as an actual thing. And in terms of the products, they only think that tampons and disposable pads are the only two options. Whereas the knowledge of sustainable periods it's not like a lot online. And even if someone would want to search online, they would need a lot of time. You know, they would need to know what's going on, how do I use it, and all that. And it will take a lot of time for them to research, which can take 3 to 4 months before converting. So through BamPads, it's like, you know, it's just shortening the timeline for a girl or woman to accept reusable pads and to use them for the comfort of their health, the environment, and those in need. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the other challenge would be, as I'm just 18 years old, so there are a lot of people who would underestimate my power, and like, you know, who would just think, oh, she's just doing like, you know, small business. After like a few months or a year, she's probably gonna stop, and project is a dead end anyway. But this is a chance for me to fight against them and say that, yes, I'm young. Yes, I talk about periods, because normally only 30, 40-year-old women would talk about periods, especially in Hong Kong. If you know Luna Naturals or other brands that are talking about sustainable periods, they're all above 25. And I'm the only 18-year-old who's talking about sustainable periods and all that. And they don't take me seriously because they just think, oh, I get my knowledge from internet and that's basically it. But they don't know the amount of hard work that I put into researching everything, into researching the fabrics, what goes into them, how sustainable is sustainable periods and all that. So yeah, there's a lot of people who would take me as I'm just fooling around. But one day I think they would know an impact that I would make. Yeah.
That's great, yeah. And you're 18 years old, right?
Yeah.
Bailey, you're actually younger than that, right?
Yes, yeah.
So Bailey, tell us about yourself. How old are you and where do you study?
Well, hi, I'm Bailey. I'm 14 years old. I'm in 9th grade at the Canadian International School of Hong Kong.
So you have a project too, and it's called reBooked. What is it?
So basically, reBooked is my project which aims to promote a circular economy for children's books, which aims to promote sustainability and just the overall reuse of children's books here in Hong Kong. So we provide two services. The first one being a free and convenient year-round book collection service. And then the second one is we maintain an online bookshop and we resell the books that we collect at super affordable prices.
So why do you actually think about doing books? What does that actually mean to you?
When I was younger, ever since I was really little, I have been a very avid reader. Reading is and has always been one of my favorite things to do. So by a couple months ago, I realized that over the years, I had accumulated a lot of books and they were just taking up space in my apartment. I'm talking about hundreds of books that were cluttering my shelves, and I didn't really know what to do with them. When I went online to look at ways to donate them or dispose of them, I found out that a lot of the charities that take secondhand products weren't a big fan of books, because a lot of people have books and they were sort of they had too many books at the time to resell or donate. And aside from that, they're just hard to maintain and hard to there was no program that was already specifying in the reuse of books, specifically children's books.
So how did it go so far? Are you able to make a profit?
Well, at the moment, as a social enterprise, everything that we make, goes back into the company. Mm-hmm. So, we're not really able to make that much of a profit, because when more books are bought, that also means more transportation costs, and that means more time spent. And so, yeah, no profit yet.
Yeah, but I know that you've actually been able to establish some collaboration with some companies, right? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so actually we've established collaborations with companies like Bookazine, with NGOs like Refugee Union, and a few other companies like Top Schools, Green Queen, Eco Parties. Some of you may heard of some of them. The way that we establish that is through simply by emailing these people and telling them about reBooked and our initiative and our values, and how we're really just trying to promote sustainability. And a lot of the times they come back with a really positive response. Another way we establish partnerships is by knowing the right people. For example, my mentor provided through Kids4Kids, Shoni, she is part of the Bookazine team, so she was able to set up a collaboration there.
That's fantastic. So you've actually run this social enterprise for a few months now. If I have to ask you, what is your biggest challenge so far? What is it?
Well, the biggest challenge I've had overall is definitely time, because I'm sure many of you guys can relate. As full-time students, it's very, very difficult to spend time on your studies or on other activities, as well as on your project.
And what are you doing to solve that problem?
To solve this issue, I I'm able to prioritize my tasks and really complete them in order of importance, as well as I set a lot of deadlines and goals for myself to meet.
That's wonderful. Okay, so we're going to take some questions now. And so all three of you, Gary, Sakshi, and also Bailey, I'm going to just, unless the question is directed to you, otherwise you just pick the question that speaks to you the most. Okay, so let's take a look at the questions on Slido. What are the current crises you're fighting at sea? Is it still the humbug? This is for Gary. And then the next one is also for Gary. Do you enjoy your job as a restaurant owner? What are the ups and downs that come with it? So can I ask Gary, you pick one of these?
Yeah, I'll pick the top one at the moment. That's quite easy. Current crisis fighting at sea. In Hong Kong currently, we are looking at illegal fishing from mainland Chinese boats that are coming in and stealing fish. So we're going out and documenting them and chasing them out of Hong Kong waters. But yeah, I mean, it's that, and it's also plastic. And that's where it's interesting listening to both of you guys who are talking about sustainability and reducing waste and everything else. And that to me is really inspiring.
Yeah, and I quite like the third question, Gary. If you have to go back in time, let's go back in time. How wonderful. Give yourself advice.
I wish I had got into it sooner. Definitely, especially when I was still with Sea Shepherd, because that was sailing around the world on a ship and getting to see amazing things and doing incredible things. And if I had done that when I was younger and single, I would have had a lot of fun. As a father of two, it's very hard for me to go to sea for 3 or 4 months at a time. My kids need me as well as my wife. So I wish I could have done it sooner.
Okay, yeah, that sounds really nice. Okay, let's hear some questions for the students. So do we have other questions for the students that we can show on Slido? Yeah. Okay, so let's move up a little bit. So I'll ask Sakshi and Bailey, please look at questions. What other setbacks have you faced because of the coronavirus situation? Sakshi, actually, you told me about it stopped something that you're doing, and now you have to be, you are stuck. You're not in Hong Kong, right? Can you share about that? Sakshi? Are you still up? Okay, maybe we'll go to Bailey first.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So there have been a couple of challenges that we faced because of the coronavirus and the current situation, especially the one here in Hong Kong. So actually February and March, those were supposed to be the busiest months for reBooked, because those were the months that we were going to be involved with the most events. These events included the Discovery Bay Market, because that's a good marketing opportunity for us, since that's really our target audience with all the families, as well as sustainability events such as Spark and Shop, which is a conscious market, and another sustainable market that was happening in February 2020. However, because of the situation, these events were canceled, and the solution that we sort of had to come up with because of that is we had to promote more because of to make up for the lost potential marketing opportunity from these events. And the other sort of challenge that we faced because of the virus is because of social distancing, it's sort of harder to manage reBooked, since a huge part of our business model is social interaction. Because from picking up the books to delivering the books, there's a lot of face-to-face with our customers, and that's what really makes us special as well. So to solve that issue, we just have to take extra precautions when meeting with customers or delivering books, such as looking into their travel history beforehand, as well as what sort of has become a norm, which is wearing masks and just being extra conscious of what you're doing. Yeah, and also just lessen our meetups, and we just encourage shipping and using drop-off boxes during this time.
Yeah, so you're very adaptable. That's great to hear. Sakshi, are you back on? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry about the network.
No, it's all right. So we were talking about because of the COVID-19, you know, like, and you told me that you actually had to, you are away from Hong Kong now. So what's happening, and how does this virus affect your project?
Yes, due to the situation, you know, I cannot because I'm not in Hong Kong right now, so it's very hard for me to work from India. But then I realized that this is a good opportunity for me to see whether I can establish BamPads here in India and start my production line, my own production line here, instead of outsourcing it to China. But like, you know, even India is currently in lockdown now. I don't know when it's gonna end. So during this time, I would say we youngsters, we have a lot of time, especially like, you know, high school students, because university is still ongoing. So I realized that we can utilize this time to see how we can further promote our business in the coming future. Because COVID-19 is not gonna last forever, like, trust me, you know. So this is a way, sorry, hold on. So this is a way for us to, like, you know, plan what we're gonna do in the coming future and contact organizations who we potentially could have collaboration with, so that we can utilize this time that we have now instead of putting it last moment and, like, you know, just rush. I hope that answered the question, because I don't know what the question was.
No, I think you answered most part of it, and then you were breaking out a little bit in the end. It doesn't matter. Okay, Gary, I want to throw you back one question. It's very interesting when, you know, we hear the two girls sharing about the fantastic projects, that there's always this idea that come up, you know, you're too young, you know, and I can't really take you seriously because I don't know what you actually know and what you don't know, you know. So when you think back of your journey, and as a very experienced entrepreneur, what would you say to people like Sakshi and Bailey? You know, is it really too young? Is there an age that they could actually be an entrepreneur? Is there a type of personality that people are actually fit for this? What do you think, Gary?
Yeah, well, just first of all, I think it's amazing what you're both doing, especially when you're evolving and adapting with this COVID-19. And like for me here with the restaurant, we've still got all the staff in, and we are doing all these little things that we never got time to do before. So like when you're saying about going out and chasing all those leads and things that, you know, you've got to do, but you just don't really normally get time to do it in day-to-day sort of, you know, ongoing. So we're painting and fixing things, and we're, you know, doing all these extra things that we, you know, we never would normally be able to do. But as in terms of age, well, the fact that both of you are talking about something that's sustainable, and, you know, sustainable is obviously a very, very key word at the moment. And they're both environmental issues. I personally feel that you have more power than any of us because of your age. You are the generation that are inheriting this planet, right? So when, like, I can stand here and I could talk all I want about saving the planet, but whenever I work with youngsters, you know, youths that are really passionate, or even younger kids at school, they're the ones that can make the difference. They really can. People do listen to you. You know, don't feel that, you know, you're just one person. One person can really, I know it's a bit of a cliche, but one person can really make a difference, right? I mean, I'll give you a very quick story I had. I was doing a talk in a local Chinese school about the shark fin industry. And these kids were about 10 or 11 years old. I did a quick talk with them, explained about the importance of sharks and how they're not just out to eat you, and, you know, said about shark fin soup and everything else. That evening, I got a phone call from a Chinese gentleman who said, "Oh, are you Mr. Stokes? You came and spoke at my son's school." I said, "Yes." And I was thinking, oh God, here I am. I'm going to get, you know, you're a white guy telling us what we can and can't eat. He said, "No." He said, "My son came home. He told me all about it. And he's told me, Daddy, you cannot serve shark fin soup anymore with your companies. So I've told him now I will not serve any more shark fin soup at any of my 4 companies. His companies combined had over 2,000 employees. So that one little boy, by going home and taking action, has just saved countless sharks and educated all these people in his dad's company. So young people have the power. They really do. They are the most powerful entity, I think, on the planet right now. When it comes to anything business and environmental related, which both of you are, you know, I think you've got everything going for you.
That's a really nice comment and encouragement, and that really wraps up our session today. I wish we had more time, but I think it's really nice to hear the 3 of you to share with us your personal journey, you know, whether it's, you know, like whether how old you are, how young you are, or how experienced or inexperienced you are. There's something that we all need to do, that we think we should do. And I have a lot of takeaway today. I don't know about the rest of you, but we would love to hear what you think about today's session. So if you go back to our Slido, and then from the pull-down menu, we actually have a questionnaire embedded in our Slido. And please fill it in and let us know what you think, your biggest takeaway, and your comments, and especially what you want to hear in terms of topic for our next Youth Connection. And once more, I want to thank Gary, Sakshi, and also Bailey, who come today and then share with us their stories. I'm sorry we're running out of time and we're a little bit late, but I think, you know, this is actually great to hear all of you and your experience. And before you go, let's take this to heart. It's never too late to make an impact, and you are never too young to make a change. Okay? So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Remember to put up your to fill in your questionnaire for us. We hope to see you next time.
All right, thank you so much.
Great,
Thank you. Thank you, Bailey. Thank you, Sakshi and Gary. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye now.
Nice. Bye, Eric. That's a good ending. Standing ovation.
Thank you very much, guys. You know, it's been very smooth. Thank you so much for your help. And I hope we're all done. You know, like we've recorded everything.